Hey everyone, it's your favorite gentleman, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today we are joined by Mr. JT Tan, a no BS mental and sexual wellness coach for men. And he is here peeling back the onions, and he and a part of the program and his program, an executive reboot strategist of is called Porn Reboot. And it is a system that is helping men fight back and push back and elevate their mindset, elevate their status, and elevate who they date, how they date, and get rid of the porn, which is billion-dollar industry, million trillion dollar industry. Mr. JT helps men break free from porn addiction, improve their dating lives, build confidence, and take charge of their mental and sexual health. His straightforward, results-driven, proven approach empowers men to level up and thrive. So I can't help but introduce you guys. This man is absolutely phenomenal. You all have to check him out, but we got him today, y'all. He said yes to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. So without further ado, help me welcome to the stage the incredible, the amazing Mr. JT Tan.
All right.
How are you, sir? How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here and sharing space with us. This is absolutely necessary. And sir, what you're doing is absolutely profound. And I I applaud you, sir. You and your not co-founder, it's like partners. You guys are partners in this, right?
Oh
Um
no, he's actually the founder and head coach, the owner of the business, right? I'm the senior reboot strategist and executive reboot strategist. So
and so you two are changing, you guys are pushing back against an industry, billion-dollar, million-dollar industry, the porn industry. They can't be too happy with you. But I want to start with a
hmm.
softball. When did it start? When did you realize this is something that is needed? Our men are not doing well, our men are not succeeding, and they're not thriving. When did you first get the bug and say, I need to accelerate this, I need to get on board? When did that happen for you?
Yeah, well, actually, all did not start with it all actually didn't start with just like try to solve a problem. It actually tried to start with my own problem first, to be honest with you.
That's real. That's real.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
guilty. I'm right there with you. It's been around since, I don't know, since Kingdom Come. Porn, prostitution,
Oh yeah.
um, the Mama San house, all of it. It's a
Mhm.
age old industry, and so that's why it's hard, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you started with yourself, is
I
what you're
started
saying.
with myself because I became more aware of like, oh, like this is something that is really affecting my life. And during that time, I was already partner with the founder and head coach, JK, on something else completely different. We actually met in a different work environment. And then, but he was also my mentor, and also we've been working for a while, right? And he pretty much started coaching me through this problem, right? He was the first person that I actually ever reveal about this problem, and that I actually had like an addiction with pornography and masturbation. And it was really hard for me to admit that. But, once I actually got through it, and yeah, and then years later, he, shared with me that he was actually already coaching a lot of men on the side, and he wanted to actually really make it a mission. And here we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's real. That is so real. And so safe to say, you fought back and you won.
Yes.
You successfully won. And
Mhm.
then how did you get a part of the reboot program? And why the unique name
Mhm.
of rebooting? Is it that literally we're starting over from the ground up?
Yes, absolutely. So that's a great question. So because a lot of people they think, you know, porn addiction is something to recover. Whenever that they think addiction is usually going back to like, AA, 12 steps, right? Therapy, counseling, recovery. But when you really think about it, especially with pornography addiction, especially nowadays, right? The average age of exposure to porn is 6 years old these days.
Ouch.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so most men, even men in our generation, right?
Mm.
You've at least exposed to pornography since your early teens or mid teens.
Right. Right.
So essentially, you've never really lived without porn as an adult.
Wh-
So recovery doesn't work. You got to reboot.
You got to restart. Why is it that? Why do you think the industry has pushed it down so young? Why are we getting exposed to it early? What's I feel like there's something in our childhood. Is it we lack the safeguards, right? Is it our computers, our software, our television? It's
Hmm.
it's everywhere. I think
Yeah.
that made news headline the other day
Hmm.
where um Snoop Dogg is out with his, I believe, his grandson. He's out
Mm,
with his grandson at a movie, and it's a Pixar. It's a Disney film, right? It's
yeah.
a Disney Pixar film, and his son is like, "Wait, Grandpa, those two women are saying they just had a baby. How is
Yeah.
that possible? What? Why do you think it's being pushed all over the place? How is it we're getting exposed so early?"
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's so available,
Okay.
right? And it's also very well part of especially the Western culture, I would say. It's just literally part of our day to day. And it's also embedded in actually, a lot of cartoons,
Mm.
pretty much like designed for kids, but there's a lot of innuendos already started there. I mean, while there's nothing wrong and it's fun, to have innuendos here and there, as an adult content. However, at some level, right, it's got to a point that literally all of our social media is full of pretty much like if you would have asked me like 2 to 3 years ago, I would call them softcore porn, but nowadays it's pretty much pornography these days, unfortunately.
Literally,
Hmm. Yeah.
literally. So I what do you think about the pressure? I think there's a surmounting pressure
Hmm.
for men to perform.
Yeah.
I think there's a deep, deep desire for men to want to perform in the
Hmm.
bedroom. And it's almost like a part of the rite of passage, so to speak.
Yeah.
And if you fail in the bedroom, that's your seed, right? That's your future, that's your
Yeah.
legacy and your ability to perform. That's why I feel for me there was a there was a there was an undertone. There was
Hmm.
an undertone to perform in the bedroom. I want my
Hmm.
first experience. I don't want to blow it. Did
Hmm.
you do you encounter men who say similar things, or what is the most common thing you've heard men share
Mm.
as to what kicked it off, or why they initiated engaging in pornography in the first place?
Actually, I think most men they engage in pornography not necessarily because of the performance anxiety in the bedroom. Actually, like
Yeah.
I said earlier, most men we are like exposed. Actually, let me ask you, Marcus.
Mm.
When were you
Fair.
exposed to porn?
I'm pretty sure I was exposed to porn at the age of 7 or 8, like like you shared earlier. It was like 6 or 7,
Yeah.
and it was the magazines, right? It was the smut
Yeah.
magazines, and then what also didn't help as well was when I was in um, elementary, not even junior high. I was in elementary school, so that
Mm.
was sixth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, fifth
Mhm.
grade.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right next to my school, literally connected to my school, was a rehab. I don't want to say a real rehabilitation school, but it's basically the school alternative, an alternative school.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
so my elementary school was connected to a alternative school for bad kids. And
Okay.
there was no separation of the bad kids with us. And
Okay.
so those kids could literally walk over to our campus
Mm.
and interact with us, talk to us, have lunch with us, engage with us,
Mhm.
and sit down with us and engage. And I'll never forget. I'm sitting there. I'm coming to school. I get here early. I get to class early, and so my
Mm.
classroom isn't open yet. I'm waiting for the teacher to come in,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the alternative kids schools is playing cards. And
Mm.
I'm like, okay, that's harmless. Cards. I walk up, and on the front and back of the cards are sexual positions.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
again, this is elementary school, right?
Oh
I'm
yeah.
being exposed to it. So
Yep.
that's what I think that's what kicked it off for me. To answer your question,
Mm.
I was
Mm.
it was the smut magazines.
Mhm.
But I think girls are exposed to it fairly early,
Yeah.
as well, but they don't absorb it like we do. Like, it's very common, it was very common for women to read Zane or read a book
Yeah.
on those things, and women didn't have it, it didn't affect them. They would read it, and then that kind of be it. but but that was my I remember those two moments distinctly for me, being exposed to
Mm.
pornography at such a young age.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like for me, it was 11 years old. I actually was exposed to it pretty much video content right away. It was a VHS tape at my
Oh,
cousin's house, right? And then no one was there. No one knew. I was just bored, and then I was curious and but there's no title even in the tape, right? It was just a blank tape. Or
ah,
so I thought, and then like I was just going through different tape, try to find a movie or something to watch back then, and then here I was, watching pornography, and it was honestly like that image right there, I still can trace back, in my
right,
memory, even though this was like years ago, like over 20 years ago,
right,
but it's still in your head. Like for you, like you still remember the first time you were exposed to something like that, right? So
right.
I think most men can relate to that. And that's what I think the first exposure is usually mostly curiosity or bored. You just kind of like, chance upon it. Your friends or family, sometimes even your dad, right, introduce it to you, or by mistake, or they don't really care. I think that's what most men actually encounter. So,
Absolutely. I totally agree. I
hmm
totally agree.
hmm
I need your help. I need you
yeah,
to share some pinpoints for the men.
mm,
Because I think another piece is some men may not even realize they have it as an addiction. Like, oh, I watch porn every now and again. It's kind of like alcohol, right? It's like,
mm,
okay, are you an alcoholic? And an alcoholic will tell you, no, I don't. I only have a beer every morning before when I wake up.
yeah,
That's an alcoholic. You're having a beer right when you wake up, right when you go to bed, middle
yeah,
of the day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. You're an alcoholic, but they don't
mhm,
know that. And so
yeah.
what constitutes, hey, I no kidding, as a man have a porn addiction. When do you classify it, or when do you think what are some symptoms that kick it off?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of men they just try to really figure out. Yeah, well, I do watch it, but not really. It hasn't really affected my life and things like that. So, what really makes pornography a problem or addiction? It's first of all, you have to be honest with yourself at how it makes you feel, right? So, if this is something that ideally in the if you were to think of yourself as like, you know what, this is the successful version of myself, and that person doesn't necessarily should not be watching porn, or after you watch it you feel like there's a certain level of guilt and there's a certain level of shame, and that guilt and shame or even just that activity is preventing you from either going for what you really want, right, or even just do the bare minimum, duty, responsibility, right, and mission of your daily basis, then it is a problem, right? If it's something that you want to quit but you can't quit on your own, that's a problem. That's an
Absolutely.
addiction.
So an addiction is something I can't stop. I can't stop this. I can't turn it off.
Yeah,
Um,
like if even though if like we have guys who reach out to us, a lot of times most people they would like look at the frequency of pornography use. It is one, you know I would say metrics to look at like the level of addiction. Actually, there is a training that we actually do provide our um you know applicants who actually apply to us. We actually usually have a waiting list to work with us, right? In our coaching program, 90% of what we provide, it's all free, on our Porn Reboot YouTube channel. But anyway, we actually have one video that actually talks about the 6 levels of addiction, right? Essentially, like level 1 to level 2, it's like it doesn't really affect your life at all, right? It's something that you kind of do it like once in a while, right? And then second, it's like you do it a little bit more often, right? But you don't really feel guilty about it. Third degree is that you're doing a little bit more often than usual, maybe like up to like once a month, and to the point that like there's a part of you, ideally, if you want to really grow and become the best version of yourself, ideally want to quit, but you couldn't, right? And then level 4 and level 5 is where it actually becomes like where you cannot do it on your own. You cannot control it on your own at all. You have no control, right? Or you have control, but eventually after a week or two, after a month, you relapse. You either
Mm.
slip, relapse, and then I've seen guys, who's been to level 4 or 5. They may actually try to quit on their own. They got out like level 2, and then like over the weekend, they gone to like level 1, 2, all the way to level 6. Level 6 is where like you actually started doing something super harmful, right? To yourself or even your relationships, or even like they start spending money, hiring prostitutes, having financial problems, right? And to the point that some people even like started actually watching really questionable content on the internet, on the porn sites. It could be something really extreme, right? Something violent, or something, that is against the natural sexual orientation, like transgender pornography or even gay porn, even though they are completely heterosexual. That's more of a long and short of it, right?
For sure.
So it really depends on which level of pornography that you are at, right? And we can definitely go a little bit more detail on it, if anyone who actually apply to us, we actually coach them to really identify, okay, which level of addiction you're at. So,
Absolutely.
mhm,
Identifying the levels, identifying, hey, I have a problem. I, as
mhm,
a man, have an addiction
mhm,
that I need help with, right?
yeah,
I'm too far gone to fix this on my own. And so
yeah,
I love that you break that down so delicately.
mhm,
I love that you guys have the steps and the tiers
mhm,
so men can identify which tier they're at. So
exactly.
we can work together to get them at a normal baseline. I want to talk. So we've talked about what are the signs. I want to ask a question.
Mhm,
Why is porn affecting men? How can it porn addiction affect a man in not thriving, not being his best self? And what comes to mind for me, and I
mm,
need your explanation for it, is time. You're losing time, right? The amount
yeah,
of time you're dedicating to this one thing, you could be doing 10 other things to better yourself.
yep.
But can you what's the disadvantage of watching too much porn or
I
engaging
will.
in too much porn?
I mean, first of all, it is time. I think you just said it, right?
Perfect.
It's the amount of time that you spend, not just watching porn. I think that most men, they only look at the amount of time they're actually engaging in pornography, or even like, acting out with it, right? Um, it's not just that.
Right.
You also got to consider the time that you are thinking about it,
Mm,
that you like, you thought about it, you want to act out, but you couldn't act out, right? Like you like, because of like you've tried to stop it, but you're like thinking like, like I don't want to do it. I don't want, like that, going like that little ping pong match, that tennis match, right? Back and forth in your mind. Even that time right there, right, is distracting you from being present, right? Of where you're, what you're doing, what you're supposed to focus on that day, on that hour, on that minute, even, right? And also the amount of time that you essentially recover from after the relapse. Usually, typically, the feeling, it's the shame and the guilt that comes after, right? Maybe not right away, It's usually, when you actually jerk off to pornography, you feel good, okay, in the moment. And after that, you in your mind, you try to justify it, okay? You
This was a good
justify
thing.
it like, it's just, maybe like I haven't really had anything going on. It's okay, right? You justify it, especially for those men who are single, right? And or let's say like if you're married, let's say your wife is not available. It's a really common one. It's like those, men who with wives who are pregnant because of
Mhm.
that during that pregnancy period, your wife not going to be available sexually, right? And you have lack of communication and things like that, and you have lack of intimacy, and hence you use pornography, to cope. Maybe even like you feel rejected from your wife because she's not in the mood, whatever the case is, right? There's a lot of reasons why men actually run to porn, essentially not addressing the things they need to address in life, right?
Abs-
And then the negative effects is like you losing time. So it's not just the time when you're engaging it, it's also the time before and after. And sometimes it takes days for you to feel like, oh, you know what, I'm good now, right? For you to feel normal, like you're normal you, and only you know who's that. Where? How do you rate yourself as that? All right, and it requires a certain level of deep honesty within yourself. All right, and it's not easy. It's not easy. And another thing, another negative effect of watching pornography too much, where it becomes an addiction, is that you are not, your brain is so excited all the time. Like usually, let me just use an example, right? Let's say there's a meter here, right? This is the like I would say, like our dopamine and our adrenaline, you know, and epinephrine. And let's say you just not doing anything, you just chill at home, doing nothing. You're not stressed. You're just you're just chilling, right? Let's say the mood is right here. But if let's say for someone who watch porn all the time, guess what? You increase your norm for you to feel normal. The norm is right here. You have to be excited, sexually excited and triggered all the time or more frequently than you actually should have. And guess what? It's like a drug addict. You're literally creating that drug inside you, and you increasing the tolerance, you know, of pornography, that you need to watch to even get excited. And therefore, you get to a point of like saturation
Mm.
and you get numb. And so that's why you see men, they actually have signs of porn-induced erectile dysfunction. They cannot perform, right?
So
Why?
so so let me understand. I
Go, go,
need
go.
your that is good. This is good. Right? So watching porn raises your sensitivity to where it becomes more and more difficult. Am I understanding this right? It's becoming more and more difficult to even be aroused in the first place because you're watching greater and greater and greater
It
amounts. You're
desensitizes you, not increasing sensitivity. It desensitizes.
desensitized.
Yeah, desensitize.
So now you started off with okay, a smut magazine. Now you've graduated to full content, full pictures, pictures online,
Hmm.
pop-ups. Now you graduated to video content. And like you said, the
Yeah,
extreme stuff. Now you and so you're it's leading to erectile dysfunction.
it could be. That's
One of the things.
one outcome of it. One outcome, one negative outcome. It could be. Sometimes it's delayed ejaculation. So it could be either or. It could be both, actually. You know. And another sign that you actually see with men who are actually having erectile dysfunction because of porn is because they cannot get up with their wife or with their partner. They can only get up with pornography, right?
Okay, so because thinking of the couple, I'm seeing couples who often say, "Oh, we watch porn anytime we're making out, or we have to turn on some porn and it enhances the bedroom performance." So that's not true. You are so desensitized that you're not even stimulated by your partner. You have to turn this on at the at to get
Yeah.
intimate with your partner. So
Yeah.
that's actually a problem. That's actually a
It
side
is.
effect, man.
It is.
Wow.
It is a problem. It is a problem. Yeah, absolutely. So, and
That
it's something that a lot of men they're not even aware of. 7 out of 10 men have certain level of pornography addiction these days. So, and and as a matter of fact, every time that you watch porn, you are pretty much rewiring your brain and training your brain to, in some ways, being a cook, right? You're like, wait, what are you talking about, GT? Yes, because you literally visualizing yourself, right? Having sex with someone else that you don't even have any engagement with, right? And you're training yourself watching another man having sex with another woman.
mm,
Like, and that's not you.
right, right.
But yes, a cuck has to be like, usually technically your partner. You're actually, watching another man having sex with your partner. So there's a difference of it. But like in some ways, you're training your brain to be a spectator one way or the other. Right. You know, and that's why it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And then because any man who have watched porn, okay, you're not engaging in it.
Right.
In the back of your mind, you have certain level of jealousy, envious, right, of the
Ooh,
man on in the screen, right?
right.
And it's fake. It's not. Well, some of them they actually might be actually having sex,
Yeah.
but it's not for you. You don't have a reciprocation, with the person that's involved.
That's so true. Wow.
That's not a
Wow.
genuine desire, from the woman, right? So, but your brain cannot distinguish, that. And like the reason that we get, excited, right? Because as men, we actually more visually aroused. That's why 89% of visual pornography are consumed by men, right? Women are more emotionally aroused, right? There has to be an emotional connection, right? And that's why you see like eroticas, right, are sold to mostly women, not men.
Mm, mm. What I want to you touched on this earlier, right?
Hmm?
And it was a great point that we're now in this age,
Yeah.
men who are not high performers
Hmm.
can gain access to the women that the high performing man could achieve all
Yeah.
day long. And
Yeah.
now it's not even, but it's the illusion that you have access to this woman when you actually don't. Whereas
Yep.
the top top achieving men
Hmm.
can have access to this woman and all these women because they've worked and they've achieved some things. I,
Yeah.
but if I'm an executive, why do so many executives turn to porn as a coping mechanism um when you don't have to, you don't need to? Or why would an executive leader in your coaching that you do, what's a common reason executive leaders are turning to pornography when they don't have to?
That's a really good question. A lot of executives, right? First of all, you being an executive in a company, being a leader in an organization, or being successful in one way or the other, even athletes, pro athletes, millionaires, billionaires, deca millionaires, right? It doesn't matter what you are successful at in your life, right? Right? It doesn't mean that you're actually successful woman. Let me just make one thing clear. Okay. So we see a
Right.
lot of men who are wealthy, right? They're not like healthy on the outside. They don't look good. They're overweight, right? And some of them that they don't really take care of themselves, or they're awkward socially. So there's that portion of men, right? There's also a certain portion of men that are a little bit in between, right? They're not like horrible at like with women, but at the moment of like maybe some of them they are married, but they actually have a sexless marriage. right? So that's
Mm.
a really common one. A lot of really successful men from the outside, everything is going well. They have kids, they have family. We even have pastors reach out to us, brother. Pastors, right? You know?
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Priests, pastors, vicar, right? From London, all the way to United States, Australia, everywhere in the world, right? Really, and they reach out to us. Why? Because one of the biggest thing that they struggle with is that like they when they're bored, they're curious, right? We're all curious, and not only that, our phone it's so available, right? Phone is just like so showing pornography anywhere, right? And because of that, our brain is triggered. Like our brain, it has not evolved fast, fast enough to catch up with the technology. We still have the same brain as the 10,000 years ago, the caveman brain. The same. It may actually like improve, like, evolve by 0.0001%. I don't know the actual science of it, but it's really slow. Okay, our biological evolution, right? It hasn't caught up to all of this AI now that we have. Now we have AI porn, we have all these sex robots, right? So it's become to the point that like our brain cannot distinguish real and fake anymore.
Right.
It's so hard.
It's terrible.
It is
You're right.
hard. It's just so available. So,
It
but going back to your question though, okay, high successful men and even men who are very, very well averse with what ladies, men, they still watch porn because it's so convenient. They don't want to go through all the thing, you have to get a date and all that stuff and everything. And not only that, nowadays there's also another side of this, more of a societal issue, right? Where um it's more of a intersexual dynamics where women are a lot more um I would say picky and selective when it comes to the man that they actually would be intimate with as well, right?
it's
80% of the bottom women, they're looking to get together not with the ones in the one, two, three, four, five. They want to get together, not even the six and seven. They want to get together with the eight, nine, and 10.
wow.
Right?
Wow.
That is the
That's unrealistic.
reality. That's a reality,
Uh-huh.
right? Because if you were to look at the statistics of like on, let me just use the only reason I'm using like dating apps is because that way that there is an actual data that they can pull, right? Pretty much only like literally 4% of women are swiping on 80% of men. No, sorry, my bad. The top 20% of men.
The
80%.
women are only selecting the top 20 men.
Actually, no, my bad. The other way around. Let me
You're
recorrect my,
good.
my,
You're good.
my numbers. Okay, it's been a long day. So, uh, the only 4% of men are being swiped by 80% of the women on the apps.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the
That
swipe rate is
makes
horrible. You know.
I saw something similar on the opposite end where a guy, he no kidding, recorded how many swipes, and I think he did like over 1 million swipes on a dating
Yeah.
app
Yeah.
just to end up with 4 dates.
Exactly.
So a man has to work 10 times harder, whereas a
Or
woman,
more.
or
1,000 times
more,
harder. Yeah. Yeah. At this
to
point.
get 4 dates. That's
Yeah.
it. A
Oh yeah.
million women he said yes to.
Yeah. Well, and also depends on like the quality of the photos, your outfit, your looks, your appearance, and everything. And in dating apps, it's mostly appearance.
No, okay, so I want to stick right here for a second.
Yeah,
We
sure.
need your help. How can men
Mhm.
improve and get better
Mm.
in connection? Right? How
Mm.
what can we improve on? Because your Instagram, you are sharp, brother.
Thank
You
you,
are
man. I appreciate it.
you're very sharp, very well dressed, very well put together.
Mhm.
Lamborghinis, Ferraris, traveling the world, private planes, the whole nine. So, can you share some tips that you share with men to say, try this, put this cologne on,
Mhm. Just to
like
be clear, I've never been on a pirate plane myself yet.
no,
I will at some point, right? But not yet, right? And I do not
absolutely,
own any Lamborghinis, but I have, had the opportunity to try, to check them out, a few of them, right? So um going back to your question, right? It goes back to just you gotta be make sure that first of all you have to, if you're addicted to pornography and you struggle with women, right? It is important for you to at least get control first. It might not be perfect, but at least you want to start the rebooting process. You want to start letting go of the shame, letting go of the guilt, and stop beating yourself up, stop counting days, right? And start actually developing the skills that you need to cope with some of these insecurities that you have. That's actually the first step, is within. Once
Mm,
you fix the within, then you can actually congruently show up without, on the outside externally, that hey, like you, if you meet someone that you're attracted to, either physically or just mannerisms or attitude or whatever the case is, personality, you walk up to her, you introduce yourself to her, you know and men who actually watches porn a lot more, than they actually should, tend to be like over sexualizing women, objectifying, right? Over sexualizing. And it's very important for you to not do that, or be aware of it when you do it. And actually give a shit about who she is first. Find out who she is before you like get way too excited to like, oh yeah, like, I would love to actually get with her, right? Does it make sense?
that makes perfect sense. That
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I feel
And
like, go
and
ahead.
and and another thing I do want to mention is just like, in terms of appearance, because we talk about appearance a lot, right? The easiest thing most men can do at the minimum is to lower the body fat percentage, and that's something I'm still working on, to be honest with you. I'm always improving, my physique, right? Um and over the years, I used to be like skinny fat, just like literally, if you look at like my before photos, it's just like, who is this boring Asian, right? It's one of those, like, literally the look that I used to have. Like, if you were to go to like, just, you know take a walk on, like, some of these, if you were to speak to really attractive women, you know um they don't even see them as men. They just see them as someone who works there.
Really?
Yeah, like mentally, they don't even exist in the realm of like, oh, there's a man. That is the problem. First of all, you have to put yourself out there, at least present yourself to the point where like woman actually sees you as a man
Mm.
before you even actually get to an equal, like, state of like, oh, okay, I might have a chance of getting her attention, right? It's about getting the attention, right? And it goes back to this. It goes back to how you show up for you first. It goes back to self-respect, right? And that's why what you do when no one is watching is extremely important.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
I hear so many informationals because I try to listen in so I can continue to give
Sure.
tips to men. What and I heard a very extreme podcaster say, he's like, you men need to get in the gym. Just like what you said, you got to fix the internal. You don't feel good. Men are
Yeah.
suffering from depression, they're suffering from high anxiety, they're not feeling motivated, they're feeling unfulfilled.
Yeah. Or even
One
just the basics, right? Like at the physical health, obesity is a really big problem in this country,
yeah,
you know,
obesity in men. In
and women too, unfortunately. But yes, men.
well, women get pregnant, right? I can't a man doesn't get pregnant. So for me to be obese as a man doesn't I there's no reason I
Yeah,
should be, right?
yeah,
Because I don't have kids physically
yeah, 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 yeah.
go through the pregnancy stage. So
Exactly. Yeah.
as one of the things that I internalize, and I hear it with you now saying the same thing. Fix the internal. Part of the internal is,
Mhm,
men, we gotta get in the gym.
mhm,
We got to work out. We
mhm.
have to get physical.
Yep.
So just like Mr. Tan said, JT said, so we can show up as men. When we
Yep.
enter those rooms, when we enter those spaces where women are present, we they identify, they instantly identify us. That's a man that just walked in. Not
Exactly.
slouched over, not
Yep.
hiding in the corner, not feeble, but also
Yep.
so change something. One of the hardest things for me I had to do when I got out the military is I had to change my appearance, because in the
Mm.
military everybody looks the same. You wear the
Yeah.
same uniform, you
Yep.
cut
Yep.
you,
Yep.
you get the same haircut. Everybody looks the same. So
Yeah.
one of the first things I had to do is I had to identify who Marcus is,
Yeah.
and I think you can speak to that, Mr. JT. How you feel on the outside in the inside should match your appearance outside. If you feel like a great person, you should look like a great person on the outside. Any thoughts there?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Like it's something that like only you can set that standard for yourself, right? Who are you when you're the best version of yourself? That's how we all should function at the end of the day, right? I really don't know how else to function, right? Like for for any man who just want to be mediocre, that's up to you. It's your life choice, right? But I don't really see any man who just say that like, or aspire to be mediocre. It doesn't make sense at all, because biologically, men, we as men, we will always, from the time we born all the way to time that we pass, right? In this earth, in this lifetime, right? Over maybe 100 years or so, right? Is that we will carry the burden of performance, right? We always will carry your birth performance. And hence, I think that's really important to actually fully accept that. That is your responsibility as a man. That is it. And you have to perform, not necessarily for the society. First of all, you got to perform for you, not for your woman, for you first. And once you set that standard and what that standard is, and when you're honest with yourself, then when you walk in a room, you're able to actually, like, you know what? I feel good. I look good. And when you look in the mirror, you're able to actually channel that into something internal and external, and it goes back and forth. Does that make sense?
That makes absolute perfect sense. I want to talk about the porn reboot system.
Mm-hmm.
How does it differ from traditional recovery models? What
Mm-hmm.
sets what you do and what you teach to men and mentors around the world? What is it? What sets it and makes it different from every other initiative, every other program out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think most recovery models they focus a lot on the past, right? A little bit too much, especially those that are trauma based, right? While it is important for you to find a root cause, for the sake of your mental health, it would help you to resolve a lot of traumatic response that you may have. But I think what's most important is that you have to reboot. What do I mean by that? Reboot means that you have to change your habits, your lifestyle, and your self image. Porn reboot system is designed by our head coach and founder, J.K. Mazie, to pretty much change who you are holistically as a man, as a human, right? And some of you, as a husband, as a father, as a pastor, as a leader of a society, right? Or even as an imam, right? Whichever religion you are, as a rabbi, right? And we welcome all faith because porn addiction, it doesn't discriminate. It does not discriminate on racial, on age, right? Or even on religion or political affiliations. It's going to come for you because it's there exposed. We're all exposed to one way or the other within a year's time, you know? And that's why there's so many men they actually get hooked onto it because of that initial, usually just a innocent curiosity. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm just curious, right? How she looked like. right? We've all thought that. You may not have said it, but just be honest with yourself. Whoever is watching this, right? You've thought that. You're like, then one thing led to another and to the next. You're doing something that is incongruent with your values. And it goes back to that. And that's why we have to change. You have to have a proven system with high level accountability, where you pretty much are surrounded with like minded men who is not going to take any bullshit.
I,
Because we said all the lies, we'll make all the excuses, and we'll tell you when you screw it up or when you're not really doing what you say you're going to do. I think that's the most important thing.
so accountability is one of the biggest things that will allow a man to be set free. Having holding himself to a high degree of accountability
Hmm.
and acknowledging, hey, I do these things, I've messed up at these things.
Hmm.
Not saying, oh well, blame it on someone else. That you'll never break free.
Yeah, or something else, or God, or the Bible, or circumstances, whatever the case is, right? And it's so easy. And only that, beating yourself up too much because it doesn't really help, right? And then a lot of the traditional recovery method, like we are the alternative to all of that. That is the beauty of this because, like, a lot of guys, they may say that, oh, well, but I got no time. But you have time to watch porn. You have time to do things that you don't really want to do. Well, come on, bro. Right? And then, or like, you know what? I think I'll just try harder. If you say you try harder and you haven't quit it by now, like you're not even able to control yourself, like to be completely porn free for like a good 3 months to even up to a year, and you don't really want to do this, it makes you feel bad to do this, right? And after that you feel guilty. uh, can you do the same thing and expect different results?
No
You know the answer to that, right?
sanity.
And you're like, oh, you know what? I'll just go to therapy. Therapy would help you, to like feel a little better and help you to find out maybe the why, of like why you feel a certain emotion, but it doesn't actually teach you how to prevent yourself from relapsing and using pornography to cope when you're feeling these emotions,
Facts.
you know? And you say, like, oh, I'll just pray harder. How many times have you prayed?
A lot,
Yeah, and then
a
if you're
lot.
still watching porn, like,
You got
like, and only that, high speed internet pornography, it's invented like what? Within the last decade, right? No, no, not last decade, last 2 decades, 2 or 3 decades, about 30 years, maybe 40 years. You start seeing the first one. I don't remember like the actual time of like where internet comes out, but I think it's in the 90s, right? The slow one, the dial-up internet, right? And high speed internet pornography was not until maybe 20 years ago. The Bible was written 2,000 years ago, thousands of years ago. We need a new technology. This is an online problem. You need an online solution.
absolutely. You need more
Yeah,
advanced. You need more modern and updated solutions.
absolutely. Yeah, and
Do
you
you?
need to update your software. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why it's called reboot. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
a reboot.
Reboot.
What
Mhm.
what happens to your computer? What happens to your iPhone when it goes and goes and goes and it doesn't get a reboot? It doesn't get a refresh. You don't restart it every now and again. It slows down.
It
It
slows
doesn't.
down, it glitches, and just imagine this. All of the decisions that you make, it could be macro or micro decisions, daily decisions, small or big decisions, financially, relationship wise, right? Career wise, or even your day to day. Right now, you have a outdated software or a virus, a porn,
Mm,
porn virus, infected software in your mind, running that software, running that your brain, your whole entire body. What kind of decision will you make? What's the quality of it? Be honest with yourself, okay? And what kind
410.
of decision would you like to make, right? For your life, right? It's freedom and time. Like, how much do you value that? It goes
Absolutely.
back to that. So,
This is Mr. JT Tan Spilling the tea on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, helping men, helping you, me, we do better and become better men. And he's spilled the tea early on this episode on how it's a time suck. It's stealing your energy, it's stealing your masculinity. It's
Yep.
a time suck for that dopamine hit for that 5 minute 10 seconds of happiness. You're
I know.
sacrificing so much in return. Mr. Tan, how do you integrate spiritual or faith-based principles into your coaching, if at all? Do you incorporate any kind of spiritual practices or beliefs in your coaching method?
We don't limit to one, faith or the other. We do welcome, and encourage our clients, or men who work with us or who wants to work with us to engage with whatever faith or religious practice that they hold dear to. And that's really important. That's actually a part of our, you know, um, total and a porn reboot ecosystem and our porn reboot process, right? We actually have a system called the Reboot Capital, and we don't have time to go into it, but essentially it is part of your spiritual reboot capital to prioritize that.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. This has been a fantastic conversation, an incredible conversation. Mr. Tan, you've shared so many nuggets this episode. If you had one more nugget in the hat, something that I didn't ask you or failed to ask you, what would you say to that young man who's struggling to make the switch? What would you say to that young man, that young boy who is struggling with porn addiction and wants to better their life?
I would say, first of all, stop judging yourself of your behavior. Stop worrying about how other people think and start being open minded to really be curious, at least very curious about what you're doing, who you are. Does that match with who you really want to be? It goes back to that because at the end of the day, you are the master of yourself. You decide how you want to live, and we can help you to lead you to become the master of yourself.
Absolutely. How can people connect with you? How can people learn more and get a part of the Reboot program?
Yeah, for anyone who watched this, podcast, if you want to connect with me directly and just have a private chat, right? You can either reach out to us anonymously, right? Do just put go ahead and actually let me know like which podcast you come from, right? Because I also appeared in a lot of other podcasts. But you can literally put the word gentleman, right? Since this is a gentleman style podcast, and on the subject line on my email, gt@elevaterecovery.org. Or you can shoot me a DM at guanting.com, guantyngdotcom, right? And just shoot me a DM, gentlemen, right? And I'll know exactly where you're from, and we'll go from there. We'll just have an open and honest conversation, okay? There's no judgment at all. Anything you share with us is completely discreet and private. And if you really are worried about your privacy, okay, just create any emails, anonymous email, and reach out to us. That's fine too. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Connect, y'all. Men, this is the way. This is one of the ways to get better, to improve our lives and change our future. So
mhm.
we unfortunately connect. I can't say it enough. Connect. Unfortunately, we are out of time. We gotta let this incredible man go. He has many more lives to change and many more men to help impact and change the future shift so we can do better. All right, y'all. Like we end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the incredible Mr. JT Tan, signing off of the Porn Reboot. Love you guys. Bye.
All right.